all of this will be captured, it will be shared in due course. But I think just to give a flavour, and maybe to capture any of these cross-cutting themes as well, that maybe you might be thinking in catchment and rivers, there's something to do with digital. It'd be quite nice to see some of those emerge. And then we're going to wrap it all up with sort of signing of the statement of intent would be the final part before networking. So, thank you very much. Over to team one.
All right. Okay, well, I've been, I've foolishly volunteered to report for our team. So I'm Spoon from Banking 3i. And we had a very lively, I think, very positive, well-structured, very well-led discussion that got everybody's voices through. So I will attempt to summarise what was said, and I apologise, it will be skewed with my own views as well. I can't help that from happening, but I will attempt to go through this. And the way I'll try and summarise this for the challenge, and I think it's that we have arrived where we are because of perfectly sensible choices that people have made over the years about where they get their water from. You know? There's some water up there, we'll take that, that's nearby. And then as you build and towns come up, you have to go further and further upstream, and you have to dump your waste further and further downstream, and this system has evolved. But it doesn't work. And it's the same for the way that we manage our farms and our farming. It's evolved in a particular way down these paths for perfectly good reasons, but they're not working now, and we need to change the way we operate. And that means really understanding the value that those river systems are and that those catchments provide. Understanding how they support us, how they give us health, and ultimately to prioritise nature, to understand that it is that natural system that supports us. And that if we allow that natural system to thrive, it will support us further. Whereas when we reach up and we extract all the water from the top of that river, we've killed that natural system. If we let it come through and we wait till it's gone by and then we collect it and then we use it, then we're sustainable and we won't have the problems. And these days we can get as much water as we need ultimately from the sea. So you know, there are methods. So the challenge is, how can we create a sort of integrated system of systems where we're allowing nature to sustain us and support us? How we overcome the sort of fragmented governance and old ways of thinking? And so, to go through the system, we'll talk about some of the barriers for achieving that, the opportunities, and then that sort of how's and who's going to do it. So, ultimately, it comes down to changing that public perception of what a catchment is, what the river is, what the value is, to get that mindset of reapproaching the value for water. And that means challenging difficult things, land ownership, vested interests, and just the mindset of, well, this is the way that we've always done things. This is how I manage my land. That's how we do farming. Of course, it's not. I mean, 100 years ago, it was totally different. And in 100 years' time, totally different. Am I being too long? No? Okay.
For 1 minute.
1 minute. So we've got to come over some of those barriers of perception. There's a great opportunity to have biodiverse, productive systems, regenerative, living systems which we need to get into place, and to have the social engagement and community engagement in how our land is managed, so that we're developing in a way that we're living as part of our landscape, and people are involved with the land around them, and they understand it. Who have we got to involve to do this? Well, it's not just government, we've got to get all of those landowners, but most importantly, communities, and also the civil organisations which can represent them, rivers trusts, and also the farmers' organisations themselves and the advisors to those and the economic mechanisms. And how are we going to do that? I think we need to rethink the understanding of how we measure the benefits that are coming from the land, who is responsible for that, who are the stakeholders that are involved, and then how we bring about change, because it's all change on other people's land, other people's property. It doesn't fit the sort of water company contracting model, so we have to come up with a new way of developing contracting systems which will allow us to deliver nature-based solutions across the catchment, delivered by communities and delivering multiple needs. So that's my summary of catchment.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Perfect timing. Okay, you've set that bar very high. So I think next up's Paul's team on talent. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Paul there or Paul's there? So Paul, you now have a little less time than you thought you did.
Someone could assist me by putting them on.
There you go. Less words, very clear.
Fantastic. Cool. Do you want the laser pointer?
Right, so we just said the challenge is how to get diverse sector workforce. And diverse, obviously, we mean not just people, but backgrounds, gender, where people are from, how they think, are they, their sexuality, religion, the whole lot. We need to express diversity in its complete context. What are the barriers to that? Someone made a really good point about the water sector's hidden. People don't know all the opportunities that exist in the water sector. And that's opportunity. It's not about engineering and science and maths and all the rest of it. There's social sciences in there. There's people who understand customer services very well. It's a huge part of everything that we do. So skills and training, retention. Somebody mentioned that the data on retention is really mixed. We don't have it. What does it mean? And it's the whole of the supply chain as well as the water companies. Do we demystify? How do we demystify? And do we really understand? We've already mentioned the age profile. So what does that mean? What does that really mean for us? The silver tsunami. Not if you will. But and also the press. The press is a barrier because you get negativity, and nobody really wants a good story at the moment. So what the opportunities? The opportunities are changing the way we word job adverts, bringing in flexibility, flexible working, etc. Communications are really big in there. Everyone has an opportunity, everyone in the sector, all of us, to shout about how good the sector is. Opportunities, look at AMP 8, 9, 10, dare I go beyond, look at what needs to be done and delivered. And Simon touched on the whole nature-based angle, catchment management, huge opportunities. Websites. We had a bunch of younger people look at websites across the sector and they were boring, wouldn't want to work for them, not talking to me, etc. Change the way we talk to people at all levels. And the opportunities to find is to talk about innovation. Let's think about innovation where you're doing some clever things with sewage and generate energy. Yeah, it sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's not always simple. There's some brilliant opportunities. Jagged around it. And schools, where's the schools programme? We need a schools programme. We talk about it, say we're going to schools, generally it's primary, very few secondary school visits, etc. Who should you get involved? Professional bodies, academia, water companies, all of us. Government, I put a question mark. I don't think they're very helpful, in all honesty. And then when you get into companies, you've got to talk about accessible knowledge. So it's not just getting the knowledge from the people who are older than you and more experienced. It's looking at reverse mentoring. How do you reverse mentor? And how do you then learn from people who come through a different environment to you, different background, different understanding? Where else did we touch on? Somebody mentioned social mobility online. Do we take account of social mobility? I would say we don't. I was sat next to somebody at an event yesterday in a wheelchair, and they deliberately had the arms taken off the back of the wheelchair because people would come along and push them, even if they didn't want it. So, things like that. And then how do we do it? Diversity KPIs, is that an answer? I think it's a start. I don't think it's the full answer because we haven't really got data yet behind all of this. Changing working contracts, being a lot more flexible, understanding people's backgrounds, their lives, and how we then look at the application process. What do we do? How do we change the wording of that application process? How do we make it different? Got a few ideas there. What if you just put an advert out that said looking for so-and-so? Just obviously innovation platforms. Where do you talk to people? All forms of social media, but not just social media. So we finished up by saying Right, the question is, are we resilient as a workforce in terms of the water sector? Everyone put hands up and so down.
That's not really cool. So we know the drill now. Next up is customer engagement and trust. So Adrian, Jeremy, coming, oh, and others.
We're doing it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, doesn't mean you get double the time, by the way.
No. But since one of the things was said earlier today was collaboration, so we are collaborating in our report back. We hope. So hello to those of you who don't know me, I'm Fiona Punchard and I'm the Member Engagement Manager for the Institute of Water.
Adrian Rees, player in the water sector for quite a while.
And he's our introduced background. So it's a playboy in the water sector. Okay, so what did we have? Citizen, customer engagement and trust. As you can see, we decided to change it. Originally it's customer engagement and we had quite a good conversation about what did we mean by that. So we broadened it out and said citizen. And we also had quite a good conversation around, but what is it we want to achieve by this? What is it we actually want to get out of it? So we need to be clear on our objective on if we engage with our citizens and if we build trust, it will help us do. So the barriers we kind of identified were that really there's no one voice that's actually acting for us in the water sector. We've got quite a bad reputation. Some of it is really heavily focused on the water companies, but we feel that there's an opportunity there in terms of how we represent ourselves. So over to Adrian for opportunities.
Sure. On the opportunity side, I particularly felt that, for instance, there were some great examples earlier today from Scotland and Wales, for instance, that shows very often the government, the NGOs, the sector partners, all working together. Some of that's about enabling legislation, some of that's about enlightening regulation, some of that's about just the people involved being open to working with new ideas, which is no small thing really, because if you're after certainty of outcome, you might well feel a little bit constrained as to what interventions you put forward, whereas if there is a little more flexibility and there are regulatory sandpits, for instance, to allow innovation to bed in, that's quite a grown-up way of looking at it, and no one's trying to beat each other up. Yes, there's enforcement, there are teeth to regulation, but it's actually done with less attention to non-corruption. That'll be a take on. There's a number of others, but I'm a biologist. I was in charge of this, which is always dangerous. You're very structured, but this is much more democratic. So, back to the who was it?
So again, we started kind of narrowing it down in terms of groups and who. So Water UK came up, who are those key influencers on social media, but we've recognised that we've all got a part to play in this, and this was touched on with the previous group, that actually we can't just rely on your comms team, your public affairs team, everyone in the water sector, whether that's people who are answering calls or going out fixing the leaks, or even the people who are planning the strategies and working with everyone's got a different voice and part to play in actually engaging with our citizens and telling that positive story that we know we have. Then how, the really fun bit, how, and Adrian gets that.
Thank you so much. Well, if you've got a situation where the who is everyone, then the how is also going to be pretty broad, isn't it, really? So I think in the diagram that was put up first, there's a sort of cross-cutting bit in the middle. We're kind of in there, I think. There are so many potential platforms, avenues, channels that you can influence through. We list a few names here, but there is no one channel for doing this. There are a number of opportunities, and there's things around starting with education. I spoke to Steve in the break around Minecraft modules to let kids play with their priorities in a society and see where water fits in that. It's a great way of looking at it. That's just an example of the technological side, but the wider comms side, those day-to-day interactions, that Fiona mentioned, yeah, all of those cumulatively have an impact. So that's the whole gamut of evolves through technology.
Thank you.
He disappeared.
Good to see a double act. So next up, penultimate, is going to be, remind me?
Collaboration and
Collaboration and water innovation. So
That's on the screen.
oh, it's on the screen. Oh, amazing. That's
And if anybody's
Oh,
wondering,
that's
knows
funky.
I've done a miracle, so I'm doing it this way. So, we had a really interesting conversation in our room. There were lots of comments, the people online, if they're still there, they contributed some really valuable points as well. We started off by thinking about where the innovation strategy had come from and the world that existed when it was generated, i.e. it was before the Innovation Fund was a thing. It was before the pandemic, if anybody remembers what that was. And so what it was designed to do, which was to complement the coming off what innovation funders trying to remove some of the non-financial barriers to innovation. It did that job, it was great, but now we've moved on 4 or 5 years, and now it doesn't quite do what we needed to do as a sector. We've learned lots of things, our maturity has improved, and so we had lots of conversations about some of the things that were difficult, and I'll just get my notes back up. So, for example, we need to work out how to increase exposure to people. It hasn't been as well integrated into the way the innovation in the water sector world works. For example, it has 7 themes, Ofwat have 4 themes for their innovation, and the 2 will never quite align. There is needing to marry the strategy around what water companies want to do with the technology that exists, with the problems that exist. And we had, when we were getting into the how conversation, quite a lot of that was around how do we match up the fact that the innovation strategy, quite rightly, needs to be a view reflecting the needs of the 18 water companies, which are all very different, and therefore, how do you get to the detail level? So we ended up at a point where we decided we needed a sort of operational ecosystem, was the buzzwords that we came up with around how do you get to the point of having a detailed list of what the challenges are, and then a detailed list of what the solutions that are available in the market. And then we had discussions around whether we should have a Tinder list type of approach, or should we have some, building on what Steve was saying this morning from Amy about having a chatbot to allow you to interrogate those databases more efficiently, and then just having a jobs board was one of the other ideas that we had. I'll just get my notes back up. And then we needed to make sure that we weren't too focused on technology. One of the things that we talked about was we biased ourselves by talking about technology readiness levels, and we need to talk about things that are wider than technology. And then we also need to have allow more knowledge and data to be shared, so that we can bring in new types of innovation. So things like business model innovation that we haven't necessarily, or system and process innovation that we haven't really seen much, because we don't have the knowledge outside of the water companies or the visibility in to make those sorts of comments. So where we got to was we need to have the revised model needs to engage with more of the stakeholders across the sector, and then also to bring in people from across the world and have an operational component as well as the strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for that. So finally, data
digital.
and digital. So who's speaking data and digital? We're doing another double act. Double act. Binary. See what I did there?
Digital twins.
Digital twins.
So, hi everyone. We decided to start with a forward-looking statement. We came on with this today, so I'm just going to read this out. That generative AI could enable automation of up to 70% of all business activities across almost all occupations between now and 2030. And that's a statement from McKinsey's. We thought that was pretty cute because it ties in with the end of the next AMP period. It is across all industries, so we can't say that we're special and different and everyone else can run off. We've got to keep up. So we thought that was a nice way to start, and we had that in our minds. And then Mike, shall I hand over to you, Roman Rumble.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so what's the plan? How are we going to use AI in the water sector? How are we going to make some progress towards that goal for 2030? So we took this in a slightly different order. We started off with opportunities and we looked at early and future opportunities. So what we really want to do is identify those places where we can genuinely practically start. So practical use cases where we can apply AI, we can start releasing and recognising early value in the sector. So we came up with 3 main use cases. Actionable insights around vulnerable customers, so support for customers based on whether they consume data and conversations they have with water companies. The outcomes for that company will be more efficient ways of dealing with customers, improve customer experiences for the customers themselves, and increase trust. We've got automated reporting and analysis of operational incidents. So this was building on what Steve talked about this morning, pulling together the information and the insight around that incident into a summary report. And then we looked at the summarization of customer conversations. So how can we prepare the information, the dialogue that a customer has with the water company very quickly and accurately, and use that for a range of things. So can we use it to play that conversation back to the customer directly so that they fully understand the conversation that the call center agent? That would be a really early quick win to avoid repeat contact if they haven't fully understood what the bill's made up of and what they're paying for. So to the future, so these would help us to get started, but there's future applications, expanding that into smart meters and the range of different insights we can generate by combining data, real-time analysis of emerging incidents, so being able to predict outcomes and predict the future of an incident, and then creation of a knowledge base so it can really start to learn from outcomes. We recognise there are numerous barriers to this. So in particular, the access to data, so getting companies to provide access to that data, there's a level of trust and a level of confidence that we're going to need before we can start applying AI to some of these challenges. Cultural mindset, so can we really get there? How do we embrace these technologies and start using them for good rather than fearing the potential negative outcomes from them? We recognise that this is going to need some sponsorship, so these things aren't free, they don't happen overnight. You're going to need some funding and some senior level sponsorship and promotion. We need to be able to measure the value, so understanding and communicating that value of these use cases and future use cases is all going to be essential to progress. And then finally, I just wanted to pick on the I didn't know when I was gone to how. So how are we going to do it? Our proposal is to start acting on these use cases. So what we're committed to as Amy is we'll host an event. We'll get some water companies in the room. We'll ask them to share some data. We'll start to tackle one or more of these use cases and demonstrate how it works. So we're not asking companies to put high risk, high value data sets into an AI environment. Typically these things start small, we start to learn, we start to progress how we can use data for more meaningful activities, and that's exactly how we do it. But the key here is JFDI, let's just get started somewhere, let's make progress, application of AI in the water sector. It's not out of reach, we think we can get there. However, there's a really essential who statement, so we recognise in the room this afternoon there were no current representatives from water companies themselves. What one person stood up. No, in the actual I can now name names. Just stood up.
Sorry, I stole them.
So we really need to get water companies involved with this. We're keen to have water companies around the table and working through these use cases with us. We do lots of work in the water industry, as Steve already pointed out, and we're really happy to help to progress some of these initiatives. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you to all of the 5 groups and all the people in the room and also the people online who have contributed. And obviously we sort of cut you short and it's impossible in 5 minutes to represent everything that came forward in those discussions. So the next steps will be that all of the notes will be taken and the sponsoring organisations today, the 6 sponsoring organisations will have a look at them, work their way through them. If necessary, come back and ask questions if there's something to clarify on, and see how the different initiatives can be folded into our business plans going forward. And some of that might be jointly, some of it might be separately, but making sure that we're not duplicating. So it's all about collaboration in the right way. So please watch this space on that. And that is essentially the main outcome of today. That's what all of your attention and energy and insights will feed into, so that we know what the next priorities are. And I think these are a little different, some of these priorities, to ones that have come forward in previous years. We're starting to get to some of the enablers rather than the problems. So I think it's been a really, really interesting set of discussions, and thank you all for that. So what else is the outcome of today? What else do we go away saying that we have done? Well, one of the actions is, again, a shout out for the Water Innovation Strategy, and anyone who wants to get affiliated to that, get in touch with Carly, and she will be delighted to talk to you and sort of help you get to grips with it and understand it. So it looks absolutely fantastic. I confess I'm one of the people who hasn't read it, so do go away and read it if you haven't, and do please get in touch with Carly and get stuck into it. The other big thing that, I suppose the other reason why this is a bit of a landmark today, is that the 6 organisations who are sponsoring today are coming together jointly to sign what we're calling a statement of intent about collaborating across the water sector. And that recognises all of the common challenges that we recognise and talk about, the fact that it needs collaboration all the way along the value chain to achieve those. Obviously, there's quite a rich diversity of associations and organisations who are looking to try and do this. So what we recognise and understand is that all 6 of us, and indeed anybody else who wants to get involved, it's not exclusive, but that we can be more, we recognise and kind of commit to being more collaborative. We need to be more collaborative in order to be as effective as we possibly can be across the whole of the water value chain. So we have a statement of intent. The areas that it covers are thought leadership, research, development, innovation, and the application of all of those things. And the sorts of collaboration that we are committing to work on together, sharing work programmes so that we can explore areas of mutual interest much more effectively and deconflict. Some coordination in one voice statements, and this was something that came up in one of the comments just now, the ability to have one voice statements on areas of common interest and join our voices together so that they're really heard. Participation in an annual joint water collaboration summit, effectively something like today, so that we can share that knowledge and experience and agree what the programmes of work will be and how we will deliver them. That we will explore opportunities to promote UK water expertise internationally, and that's something we haven't yet, we'll come to in a minute, but we haven't yet talked very much about, but which is one of the really important objectives of all of this. And then connecting our resources, sharing our knowledge, so that we can deliver the ambitions of the Water Innovation Strategy. So at the end, it's not a sort of ceremonial signing, so you don't all have to stand around, but we will all be putting our names to that statement of intent. So I hope you recognise I think that's really a step forward for the sector in terms of how it drives these really important challenges forward together. So I'm now going to hand over to Mark, who is going to just say a little bit about how we're getting on promoting UK expertise internationally.
Oh, thanks very much for that, and thanks everyone for coming today. I wanted really to pick up on some discussions we've been having in Stockholm at World Water Week with the Stockholm International Water Institute. Rebecca Pow was there earlier this year to look at what they've been doing there, to share knowledge and share thinking. And we discussed, I think, SIWEM and British Water have supported the Stockholm Junior Water Prize. So we've discussed the idea of a UK pavilion at Stockholm World Water Week. It's normally the last week in August. It's not as far as Singapore. As you know, we try and do things in Singapore, but it's quite a long way in terms of market opportunity. But this is a real good way to engage. It's not an Amsterdam Water Week, which is, it's a little bit Dutch talking to the Dutch. It is a bit more European, but we think Stockholm's a real opportunity. So I've written to all the member organisations and to the Department for Trade and a number of other organisations to look at their support. I think, is Mark Smith, Mark, you were at World Water Week this year, weren't you? I think for the first time.
Yeah. It's a very different thing.
Sorry. You need to click the button.
Yeah, it's a very different space actually, and the conversations that were there were very high level, United Nations, very, very high level sort of people who wanted to engage in, very easy to have conversations. There seemed to me to be very little agenda, a lot was based on the SDG 6 obviously, in the, we have 7 years after they launched in 2015. So I felt actually that by not having any British presence, I thought it was a real gap. Yeah. And I really encourage it. And the company I work for, RSK, are going to embrace that. I think that's one of the issues that we will be following.
And the other thing is, it also opens up the policy side, and I see it sort of like a pre-COP, where you can actually talk to people who will then be at the COP and maybe influence as well. So we're going to take forward our plans around that. So if anyone's interested and wants to get engaged, feel free to contact the member organisations that you're involved in, but I'm more than happy if you contact me directly. We want to try and really, I think, galvanise in the same way we're looking for common purpose today, look at that as maybe an opportunity where we can demonstrate we're doing something in the international market space, and see in a post-Brexit world if we can maybe take some of that fantastic best practice that our minister talked about earlier, and take that around the world. So we'd really welcome everybody's support in that, or indeed if you've got any reservations, as I say, we'd be more than happy to talk them through. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Mark. And before we just get to the formal close, is there anything that any reflections on today, anything that anybody's burning to say? Yes, at the back.
Burning to say something. Thank you for coming with me.
Thanks, sir. Sorry I wasn't here earlier. Steve Kelly, Queer. Just the point Mark made about the Stockholm event and it being based at high level and talking about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Well, the water sector innovation strategy is actually, I guess, our attempt in the UK to pick 6 of those. Is it 6, Carmen? 7, so I got that wrong. Anyway, 7 goals, and off those 7 goals, we've hung off it some more specific UK water industry challenges. So, and as Sarah suggests, if we work on specific collaborations that fit with those challenges in the strategy, we could really showcase it and join up to that more national, more international picture.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for bringing that up. And it gives me a chance again to say that this is not exclusive, it's not just the 6 organisations who happen to be signing the statement, but we are really keen and we want to work with anybody out there, any other organisations as well. Anything else that anybody wants to take this last, I've got 2 minutes, this last opportunity before we wrap up? Yeah. Gail, come towards me, take me walking the whole way.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody and for my invite today. There's many faces here that I know from the past, but I certainly don't know them in my new role with the Rivers Trust. And if I take anything away from today, it's that we have all got a common purpose here, and we really need to think about that in terms of collaboration. So, you know, I would ask everybody in this room to think about all the other stakeholders and people that are out there that really need to start getting engaged in these types of conversations because they're really useful and there's lots of people working.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Jeremy Lowe. I'm with Aqua Consultants. Some great discussion here today. But given the process that water companies have just gone through, they've submitted to what I'm waiting to see what the outcome on that is. It's likely to be the household bills are about to increase by a third, if not more. I'm just wondering whether some of these great ideas could not have. How can I put this? What the criticism that may be that these organisations that exist are talking shops, and they serve a chattering classic, yeah? That could have been, I believe, challenged or more effectively addressed if there was tangible evidence that these incredible ideas had fed into those plans that have gone into what, which may justify the increase in customer bills. I'm just wondering why the timing for that wasn't more aligned to. Yeah, I don't know if you follow what I'm saying. It's not a criticism, it's an observation. Yeah.
So I think it's a very fair observation. We have one of these, probably not quite as wide-ranging this time last year, so there was the opportunity then to feed some of that in. I think this is it's an ongoing iterative process, and just because the plans have gone in doesn't mean that what we're doing can't then feed into the execution of those plans. That would be my answer. And that I think our challenge is to insert ourselves then into, once these plans are signed off, maybe even with the opportunity to be part of the evidence, but actually to get into the execution of those plans and saying some really great ideas. Because a lot of what we talked about is enabling, I think. It's things that can be put in place to really help make those plans work. That would be my answer. I don't know if anybody better informed was better or not.
Our answer on behalf of the water companies. And as an innovation manager in there as well. So part of the whole process is effectively we're putting in our business plan and saying, okay, we've developed innovation to this level. Okay, so my own company would have said, right, okay, our smart network system, that will get us to so far. What's interesting is that our regulator will be turning around and challenging us on that and saying, okay, brilliant, you've done that, fantastic, you can see why that's making a difference in your delivery process, but we expect more of you. And the regulator will turn around and say, right, the challenge to you is we think you can deliver that at a lower cost than you're telling us, and the difference, we're expecting you to innovate to manage that. And the tricky part is the innovation should be challenging, but it shouldn't be what I call pixie dust, where they just go, don't worry, innovation will solve that gap. Yeah, but our regulator will be challenging us as water companies and saying, you're saying you can deliver this level of performance, but we actually think you can do it at a lower cost, and that difference, you've got to innovate, you've got to come up with new and better ways of managing your systems to do that.
Yeah, Jeremy Gavin Costain, I'm leading the UK Water Partnership Public Value of Water work that's already going on. So we've done a case study with Southern Water, looking at the wellbeing value of cleaning up the water in their CSOs. So there's going to be a webinar on the 7th of November about what we've done there, but that has been their response to the WINEP process and saying to themselves, how do we demonstrate the business case for more sustainable solutions that are better for society? Can we make more of the social value element of those business cases? So that's been embedded into their thinking around WINEP. And what we're trying to do is help the sector move that forward. So when the business cases get challenged, you could say, well, actually, as part of this work, this is the wellbeing value of why we should do this work.
Simon, you also wanted to answer Jeremy's question.
Yes, Jeremy. Yes, Jeremy, yes, I think it's a very valid challenge, talking shop. Is it just words? And I would say, as I'm on the consultancy side of it, and I think it is by exchanging and working around these things that we develop the ideas. My job is to go and work with water companies to help them to put together these plans. So I would have been sat with my clients in the water companies, looking at how they're going to develop their advanced WINEP plan, and I'll be drawing from things which I got last year from a UK Water Partnership meeting, or from an Upward meeting, or from these other meetings. So it's part of that process that feeds into it. And then another thing that maybe I'd like to say, I'm now on the committee for the Foundation for Water Research. And I think, there's a case to think, well, maybe now's the time to update the Urban Pollution Management Manual. The process of how we deal with overflows and how we take stuff forward. And here in the room are a lot of the people who are needed to have a discussion to see, are we able to do that? Is now the right time? Can we get the funding to do that? Is it going to help take things forward? And I think that's where meetings like this, forums like this can be positive. They can help us to talk. They can help us to get the cases together, which we need to take the industry forward.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
Turn it on.
I think you'll find across those organisations in the past 12 months we've been engaging all the water companies and the regulators. We've been finding out what their key issues are. We've been interviewing them, making those interviews transparent for the entire supply chain so everybody can understand where everyone's coming from. We've been trying to visit the water companies to see what their specific context is and their specific challenges, so that we can get better aligned with the supply chain, we can build stronger partnerships, and ultimately we can deliver what's going to be the biggest we've ever had, with arguably limited resources. We've got to make the most of it. So this is part of a process where we're getting alignment, we're getting closer partnership, both at a body level and at our core business level, so that we can do a better job for what is an increasingly once in a lifetime type challenge with climate change facing us. That's what I think it's about. If it was a talking shop, I assure you we wouldn't be bothering. And I think there's so much potential, and it's down to all of us to lend our shoulders to the wheel. Not a few people in the corner to organise everything. Everyone professionally has an opportunity to engage in this.
So thank you, Jeremy. I think that's it's stung quite a lot of us, because actually you've got a really good point. I think all of us have got a responsibility to think, how can we draw more of the water company representatives into these discussions, whether it's in this room or through some of the bilateral discussions or through some of our organisational discussions. It's a really good point. I'm going to, I think, draw the proceedings to a formal close, because 25 past was the time I was instructed to do that. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody, both in the room and online, and also a huge thank you to Arup, Martin and Eve and Francisco and Maya, people who've actually done a lot of the work to make this happen, and also to the directors Hans and Chris, who are here today, who've done a lot of the sort of crafting of the agenda to make sure that it was a productive day. Could we just give them all a little vote?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for those kind words. I think also our chair needs a round of applause. I would say that everybody in the room needs a round of applause, but I'm sure they'll be like, oh, okay. But well done. The energy's been kept at a really high pace. I'm exhausted. So I know probably everybody else is. And we have, as your reward, we've got some drinks coming into that space that you know well now. We've got until 6 p.m. or so, and I think then we're going to get moved out. And somebody mentioned the pub. I don't know where that is, but there's one just around the corner. But if you're able to stay for a little while longer, keep the conversation going, make those new friends that you've met in the room today, keep that energy going. There's a lot of work to be done. So I think we need to sort of get ourselves in that frame of mind. You're going to be seeing these people more and more often, I hope. So I think that's it for me. We've got the signing piece, which is coming up now. So if you want to see that ceremonial signing, fine. If you want to go to drinks, even better. I've got one more thing. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to say today. Who's got a name badge?